Hello, everyone. My name's Jason, and I'm just going to go through what I think are some of the best resources for IB business management, or at least the resources that I use and have some experience with, and I'll give you my thoughts on them. I'm not affiliated with any of these publishers or companies in any way, but I have included the links for each of the resources I mentioned in the description below. I'm going to start off with, I would argue, probably the most famous IB diploma business resource, which is the business management textbook by IBID and Paul Huang. Paul's, I guess, probably one of the biggest voices within the business management space, and he produces a lot of other pieces of content that I'm going to talk about briefly here. The book itself, the new version has just been released at the time of publishing this video for the new course. It's comprehensive. I believe there's 800 to 900 pages in the book. You can get it digital, you can get a hard copy, and it's highly detailed. There's a large number of exercises in there for the students. It's got a strong treatment of the business management toolkit, and in general, it's a great resource. I do find that from the old version to the new version, there wasn't maybe as many changes as I would have liked to see. Some of the case studies at this point, I would argue, are a little bit dated. I definitely supplement the case studies presented with other ones. And I would say some of the questions presented as 10-mark questions in the textbook don't follow the structure you would find in an AO3 question in an exam. And I find this a little bit problematic. I try to train my students really specifically on the structure of those type of questions and using command terms, etc. And so there are some of those 10-mark questions in that textbook that I just don't find very useful, and I don't use them for that reason. But overall, I would say it's my go-to in terms of textbooks. Also from Paul Huang is his relationship with In Thinking. They have the subject sites for the various diploma subjects, which are, really great. There is some crossover, I would argue, in terms of the content, not directly, but, there is, because Paul is responsible for, curating the content on In Thinking and for the IBID book, but there is enough difference to make having both worth it. Now, the In Thinking site, you can open it up to students, so students can view the pages, or you can just keep it as a teacher resource. Personally, I don't use it for the students, I use it just for me, but it does have some great stuff that I do share with students, some of the worksheets and things like that. I would say, as a downside, the user experience on In Thinking, the platform they use to host the content, isn't the most intuitive. It can take a little bit of digging to find things sometimes. They're hidden like under multiple levels of menu, things like that. But once you get used to it, it really is pretty straightforward. And I would say for the price of access, it's a great resource. Along with the textbook from Paul, there's the opportunity to buy the slides from the publisher, from IBID. They're not made by Paul himself. They're made by another business management teacher, Vivian. And, my school purchases these slides every time they're released. And honestly, they're pretty great. They cover everything as on a basic level that you need to cover in the course. And if you're a new teacher, an inexperienced teacher, you could just go through these slides step by step and you would be perfectly fine. They refer directly to the Paul Huang textbook, so that it refers to questions within the textbook in the slides. So you would really have to be using that textbook to make full use of those slides. The newest version of the slides is much better than the old version, I would say. It's a lot nicer looking. The experience for the students viewing it is much better. I would say that, and I understand why, the slides are essentially quite basic. They don't really do any inquiry-based learning. It's more facilitates a like chalk and talk model. So that's why, like personally, the slides are the base, and I build other activities off those slides. And I think that's what most teachers do. And I think that's the reason why the slides don't include a whole lot of those kind of inquiry-based activities, because it's really up to the teacher to decide what is going to work in their classroom, and the slides provide a good base for you to do that. Leaving kind of the Paul Huang and IBID area of the business management content that's available, we have Cognity. Cognity's become really popular recently for many subjects, not just business management. Essentially an online textbook. It has some interesting functionality. You set up classrooms, you can assign readings and questions, and it's quite handy for that. Easy to set holiday reading tasks, and that the reading's been done because it tracks it. The questions, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the questions, especially because some of them are like auto marked, and it doesn't allow for a lot of nuance in the responses. But I do use it quite extensively for the reading aspect. One criticism I have of Cognity is the content can be a bit lacking, I find, in comparison to some of the other books available, and also the cost. Now, I'm not directly in charge of the budget, but I know how much we pay for access to Cognity, and to be honest, it's a pretty obscene amount of money. And if I had to cut something currently from our budget, that would probably be it. I think we could make do with other resources beyond Cognity. But if you're making like strong use of the questions, of the readings, then I can see some value in having it. The other kind of big textbook, I guess we could talk about, is the Oxford Business Management textbook. Now, I guess the lead author, there are multiple, but the lead author is Dr. Loic Lamine. And he's the chief examiner of the business management course. So he does, he's led the curriculum development. He really knows his stuff for business management. I've been lucky enough to do some training with him, so that was great. Because of his experience, I found the Oxford book a bit underwhelming, and maybe it's because I had that expectation, knowing him and knowing, his depth of knowledge. The Oxford book is, if we compare it to the Paul Huang book, much less detailed, especially in the area of the business management toolkit. It just falls a bit flat there, I think. And I have the Oxford book for reference. I couldn't see using it as the only resource. It wouldn't stand up to that kind of usage. But I think it's definitely worth having as a reference material. And I hope maybe in future, editions, they might expand it out a little bit, because I think it needs a bit more meat on there. We also have, I thought we were done with Paul Huang, but we actually have a company called Level 7 Education, which Paul is one of the contributors. Potentially, I think he's one of the owners as well. I'm not 100% sure there. But Level 7 produces great study packs. So these are the study packs that you would use to prepare students for the paper one, or the exams in general. And these are really, really useful resources, and they can seem expensive on the face of it, especially the paper one case study packs. I believe they're somewhere more than, say, £100 or $100. I'd have to check that. And really, you're using them for a month or two in advance of the exams. And so it can seem, if you're the person in charge of the budgets, that is a bit pricey. But for me, it's really invaluable for that final leg of preparation for the kids coming into the exam. And I would really recommend it. Push the boat out, get out the card, and get that resource for the final preparations. Another resource along the same vein is from IBBiz, from Colin Libassi. These are case study packs. And these case study packs are great. I use them a lot. Basically, the problem you have using past exam questions from other sources is that the exam questions are built on the assumption that the student has gone through the entire course. And of course it has to, but when you want to practice exam questions when you're just at the beginning of the course or halfway through the course, it can be hard to find a question that is testing only on the content that you've already covered. So the great thing about the case study packs from Colin and IB Biz is that they're written and organized in a way that they cover in sequence the content in each of the units. So you can be in Unit 1, Section 1, and there's a case study directly relevant to Unit 1, Section 1. So I use these extensively to supplement the IBID slides, the In Thinking, and the Paul Huang textbook that I use on a frequent basis. The final one, it's a free one, and it might be a bit old-fashioned, but there are a number of Facebook groups for business management teachers where a lot of great ideas and resources are shared. And every day, when I'm checking my updates, I'll get some little nugget of information, some useful tip, something that I find useful for my class. And I think, there's no harm in signing up if you have a Facebook account and just, get what you can out of that for free. They're the resources that I have experience with, that I have available to me, that I use. If you have other resources that you think are handy, go ahead and drop a comment below and subscribe for more, IB diploma content, IB business management content. Have a great day.